Yep. My name is Ben Chin, and I'm the political director of Maine People's Alliance. So Maine People's Alliance was founded over 30 years ago, the 1980s, working on low-income housing and utility rate issues. So since then, we've grown to be an organization with over 32,000 members. We work on a lot of different issues, from healthcare and taxes and the budget to immigrant rights and racial justice.
They're an advocacy organization that seems particularly focused on groups of people whose voices oftentimes are not well heard because they don't represent moneyed interest very often, but they tend to be people who are directly impacted by policy decisions, who don't necessarily have the resources to hire lobbyists and so forth. So I think the goal of the organization is to work at the grassroots level, as I understand it, and teach people about policy and encourage them to become involved.
You knock on doors, and that's how I started. And I mean, that's the very first thing, and there's really no shortcuts. Is you go out to where people live on their doorsteps and have real conversations with them about what's going on in their life, and ask them to financially contribute and become a member. It's the only way to make things happen. Is if you got people signed up who are willing to give you money because they believe in what you do. And I think we do get some money from foundations and all that, but at the end of the day, who we are really reporting to are the 32,000 people who are writing us a check. Volunteers will find other volunteers too. I mean, I think if you were to draw a little bit of a tree of like how people have come, usually there's like somebody who, got introduced to MPA because they were knocked on the door, but then they brought a person or two, and then those people brought a person or two. So I think last year there were over, 6,000 people who did at least 2 actions with us, beyond just writing a check. And so I think that's that web that kind of gets out there.
Actually, somebody from Maine People's Alliance came to my door maybe 15 or 20 years ago and asked for a donation and told me about the work that they did. The organization actually started in Lewiston and had to do with housing for people who had trouble finding affordable housing, but they branched out into all kinds of other issues affecting the real lives of people, and that appealed to me. So I gave them a contribution, and then I was on their list, and then they kept inviting my wife and me to come to meetings, and I went to some meetings, and before I knew it, I was involved.
Most people have no idea what happens in this building in the State House. And if they did, they'd be pretty pissed off, and they'd be banging down these doors and their neighbors' doors to tell them about it. And that's not true for everyone, but we don't need every single person to be mobilized. We just need the people who are up for it and who are going to be affected by this stuff to do it, and the people who care about them. And so it's just the craft of making sure that people can get what's going on and feel like they're in a room with a bunch of people that have the power to work together to make something happen, and are fired up enough about the injustice to do what it takes. So we're just a conduit. There's not. I don't think we are doing the motivating. I think we're just helping people connect some dots.
Shifts. I mean, it's very much state issues that we work on and local issues.
I'll tell you right now, the number one thing we're working on is Medicaid expansion. And 70,000 people in Maine need health care and could get it in the first 3 years, paid for 100% by the federal government. This would create over 4,000 new jobs in the state. Last year, the number one thing we worked on was a state budget. The year before that, it was protecting same-day voter registration to make sure that voter suppression didn't happen. And it really changes every single year because each year we do an analysis of what are sort of the biggest opportunities and the biggest threats, and what can we really bring to the table and add value on.
The voting right issue is to me, it's really basic. Everything depends on people being able to vote. And sometimes at election times, we take people to the polls to vote, or if they can't get out, we do absentee ballots. We bring them an absentee ballot and take it in, or help them get registered. And so that's been one of the most satisfying things for me, is to make people feel empowered to be voters.
the planet's still getting warmer, the rich are still getting richer, the poor are still getting poorer, and that's the yardstick of how we need to judge our success by in the end. And I don't know if we'll be able to get that in 5 years or 40 years, but that's the goal.
I just think it's important. This whole representative democracy depends upon, the citizenry participating. There are a number of women who gave up a lot so that the three of us could vote, okay? I want to convince not just women, but men as well, that it's part of their responsibility.
Yeah, I learn a lot because, you read the names of these people who represent us in the legislature, or you hear them on the radio, and it's really wonderful to meet them. It's something that we can do because this is a relatively small state, and our representatives are our neighbors, and it's a way to meet them and ask them anything you like, and really get a feel for what drives them. It's interesting to think who's involved in politics and why. I've always been involved in politics, but that's because my father was involved in politics, and he said to me, you should be involved in politics. It's half of life. And I thought, well, that's good. It doesn't have to be the whole thing.
What this work is about is really being connected to these direct injustices that force you to be in situations where you don't know how to get done what you need to get done, but you're committed to learning and working hard to figure it out. And I don't know. I mean, I just feel like that's what I want to spend the rest of my life doing, and and there's no end to it.